Thank you for tuning in to MacroView Television and welcome to a brand new edition of Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Wu Ruiguo. One of the most talked about international events in 2016 has been the Brexit vote on June 23rd. What are the likely impact on global economy and politics? We're going to find out on today's program because we will have a conversation with Professor杨三亿, who's currently an associate professor of the Graduate Institute of International Politics at National Chung Hsing University here in Taichung, Taiwan. Welcome to our program, Professor Yang.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wu, and everyone.
All right. One of the surprises that we have learned after the Brexit vote on June 23rd is the fact that many British people, after the vote and the results were confirmed, went on Google and searched terms like, what is Brexit vote and what is the European Union? This came as a shock to many people, present company included. And let me ask you this then, Professor Yang. What is the European today after the Brexit vote on June 23rd?
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say that the European Union currently consists of 28 member states.
Okay.
As we know, there is Great Britain and also France and Germany, etc. There are 28 member states.
Okay.
And we know that the European Union, it is a kind of international organization that is aimed at regional economic and also political integration. Mm-hmm. So those 28 member states, they have to reach kind of a consensus, or the so-called qualified majority voting. Okay. That is, if today UK, they have the so-called Brexit referendum, mm-hmm. and in the near future, I think UK won't be a member of the European Union, mm-hmm. which means I have to say that UK cannot participate in the whole decision-making process. That's the important why we are talking about the importance of a Brexit in this regard.
All right. And what will be the likely consequences after the Brexit vote? For example, will there be other countries, member states in the European Union, who may want to do the same thing as the British people did?
Maybe, just like you said before, maybe as far as we know.
Okay.
There is in UK's Brexit, of course, and some member states, for example, the Netherlands, members of Parliament of Netherlands, they advocate that we should be the copycat. Since there is UK's Brexit, so we can learn something from the UK's referendum.
Okay.
Of course, there are still some member states with strong Euroscepticism.
Okay.
But I think currently, mm-hmm.
In
addition to Netherlands,
mm-hmm.
there won't be so many member states. They are going to hold the referendum.
Okay. I think the important factor is whether Britain will be better off after leaving the European Union, or is Britain going to be worse off, if they decided to leave the European Union? That was to be seen. But let me ask you, what were some of the factors that went into the British people's decision when they casted their vote on June 23rd?
I think there are several factors promoting this phenomenon.
Right.
The first, I think I have to say that the public opinion poll today may or may not so accurate. For example, this referendum, as we see, the Brexit campaign, the Leave campaign, the so-called Leave campaign, is not a landslide victory.
No.
It's kind of a neck and neck balance. Mm-hmm. So the first, when two campaigns, they advocates to remain within the EU or exit the EU, mm-hmm. and it is not a landslide victory. So this is, and second, I have to say that England, instead of Britain's, vote the Leave. So this is the second feature. Okay. For this referendum. And third, the young people, instead of the elder, vote to remain within the European Union. Mm-hmm. So this is the third feature. And I have to say that the political or economic implications for this referendum is The first, we can see that it has a strong impacts on political landscape of UK's development. For example, the resign of Cameron, and then the incumbent Prime Minister, May. What she has to do is to consolidate the power base within the Conservative Party. So we can see that there are a lot of political elites. She recruits, for example, Johnson, the former London's mayor, Johnson. He has to include all the pro or not pro-EU political powers in her political base. So for the incumbent Prime Minister May, what she have to do is to stay within the camp and try to consolidate to reach some kind of a consensus.
Okay, and let me ask you: is it because the British people really want to take back control? You know, not sacrificing so much of their autonomy to be a part of the European Union that really caused the Brexit vote to be successful? What do you think?
I think there are so many reasons why this Brexit vote. First, the UK has a long tradition for sovereignty. Okay. Sovereignty first. So we can see that there are several privileges, the so-called privileges for UK. The first is the rebate system.
All right.
During the Thatcher's regime, the EU offers some privileges, of course, in terms of money to UK. Second, you can see till now, UK did not adopt euro as their national currency. And of course, UK is not a member of a Schengen agreement.
No.
So I have to say that UK tried to keep a distance with European Union and stay autonomous outside the European Union.
Okay.
So this is the reason why according to me, I think UK tried to be not part of the European Union.
But they cannot deny the fact they are part of Europe. You know, they may not be part of the EU, but they're still part of Europe. But the thing that a lot of people, you know, really question was the sense, do the people in Britain really understood, you know, what the impact and the consequences would be? Or is this just something they voted against the establishment? What do you think?
In my opinion, I think there are at least three impacts on UK's future. First, UK will lose its clout within the EU and outside the EU. In terms of within the EU, just like I said before, UK cannot participate in the decision-making process.
Of course.
UK become outside the EU, so as we know, there are three kinds of EU laws: regulations, directives, and decisions. All the EU's law will be formed inside the EU through the European Commission's proposal and ratified by Council of the European Union and the European Parliament. Since UK is not a member state of the European anymore, so UK cannot have a voice within the EU. And second, EU is also an important international player, a global player. So EU's policy, foreign policy toward, for example, to Russia, to Middle East, or even to China, from that moment, UK cannot have any say in this regard.
Okay, all right.
So, and finally, I think also there is a serious impact to UK's economic instability. For example, we can see the devaluation of British pound these days, and also retreat of foreign direct investments, for example. So I believe
there will be some consequences.
Yes.
All right. What do you think are the factors that might have given rise to Euroscepticism? Is it because of the economy? Is it because of autonomy? Or is it a combination of all these things?
Yes. I have to say that in addition to the claim for sovereignty, and also the pride of UK Empire, British Empire. And one special feature for this is the so-called UK-US special relationship.
Yes.
Through this channel, UK not only a strong partner of a US hegemony, but also UK is also a permanent member of a Security Council, United Nations, and also British is also the head of Commonwealth. So sometimes UK they will feel that we are a global player.
Yes.
In this regard, so UK we can explain why UK tried to maintain a distance between UK and European Union.
So they want to retain their autonomy.
Yes.
And let me ask you this. A lot of people said before the vote on June 23rd, it's going to be neck and neck. It's going to be close. But even though it's not a landslide victory for Brexit, as you mentioned, but still, I think the margin of victory was bigger than many people anticipated. Why?
This is crucial in this regard, but I have to say that during the campaign, and we know that just the Kessler vote several days ago, there is a Prime Minister, Cox, was assassinated.
Okay.
And people say that, okay, all the campaign should stop at that moment.
Okay.
I think there is one important factor explaining why the cast, the so-called Brexit campaign will win. The important thing is that the party split within the Conservative parties. Not every political elites within the Conservative Party, they truly advocate to remain within the EU.
Okay.
The same situation also in Labour Party.
Okay.
So both the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, they are not truly support within the EU.
Yeah, remain.
Yes.
Okay, so that's why the Brexit at the end won the referendum vote, and the margin of victory was bigger than people anticipated. Professor Yang, we've been talking about Brexit vote on June 23rd. Let me ask you next. The Brexit vote, a lot of people say, hey, it's only advisory. It's not legally binding. But a lot of people, on the other hand, say, hey, of course, this is the direct will of the people. The government should respect it. So what is the status of Brexit vote result today?
In terms of decision-making process in UK, the so-called referendum is not compulsory.
No.
It is advisory, of course. Since all the bills should be passed in the Parliament.
Okay.
So in this regard, referendum is advisory.
Okay.
However, both former Prime Minister Cameron and also incumbent Prime Minister May, they have declared that we will respect the outcome of referendum.
Yes.
So I do believe that, I have to say that in the near future, I believe the UK will leave the EU.
Yeah, but the process is going to take a few years. So that's why a lot of people who have cast a vote to leave European Union are now regretting them, right? And over 4 million people, British people, apparently signed a petition to have a second referendum. Is that likely, Professor Yang?
Actually, according to past experience, of course, there are the so-called second referendum. For example, yes. For example, in Ireland, when they ratified the Lisbon Treaty, according to Ireland's constitution, all the international treaties, when it transforms into domestic laws, Ireland should hold public referendum to ratify whether or not we will accept this international treaty. And in Ireland, of course, they, in the first referendum, they do not ratify Lisbon Treaty. At that moment, all the other EU member states, including Merkel and other important political elites, they advocate, Ireland, you should pass the Lisbon Treaty, or the EU's integration will stop you. So the Ireland had held the second referendum and finally passed the Lisbon Treaty.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
However, UK's exit referendum is totally different.
Okay.
Since Ireland, if he did not pass the treaty, all other member states will be dragged into a down spiral, and European Union's integration will stop here. But for the UK, it's your own business. So if you decide to stop here,
okay,
please just go away. I have known many scholars from the European continent. From the first moment, they say that please just go away if you do not want to stay with us.
Okay.
So I have to say that I don't think there will be second referendum, especially just like you said, this is a neck and neck balance. So if there will be second referendum, how about the third referendum and fourth referendum?
Okay. All right. And we already seeing the resignation of Prime Minister Cameron, and we have a new, occupant in the Prime Minister's office, in Madame Theresa May. And how would you think that Prime Minister May and her new cabinet will manage the process for Britain to exit the European Union? We know it's going to take some time, maybe a few years, but there's also going to be a lot of the intricate details that the British government needs to manage. How would they do that?
If I were the Prime Minister, I have to consolidate my power base.
Yes.
Just like I said before, part of the Conservative Party, members of the Conservative Party, they do support stay in the EU. Okay. Some others not. So the first thing I have to do is to consolidate my power base. So the members of my cabinet should be some people from pro and some from non-pro EU camps. This is the first thing I have to do. Second, since the leave EU is not an immediately event, so I have to do is wait and try to form some kind of consensus. With this consensus, I only can negotiate with the European Union. This consensus is what kind of a relationship between UK and the EU after I leave the EU.
All right.
For example, should I become very close to the European Union? That is the so-called Norway model. Or should I stay away from the European Union? That is the so-called WTO or other models. So to form some kind of consensus is crucial.
All right. And, one of the maybe unexpected consequences of the Brexit vote is that there's been rising calls for Scottish independence. Because the Scottish people, according to the referendum results, wanted to stay in the EU. And there's, of course, in addition to that, there's the long history between Scotland and also England. But given the fact that there's been, calls for another referendum for Scottish independence, what do you think that will happen to British unity?
According to the international report, the First Ministry of Scotland, she has declared that we are going to hold the second referendum in the year of 2016. Just 2 years before, in the year of 2014, they held the first independence referendum, of course. In addition to Scotland, also the Northern Ireland. We know that they just reached an agreement and Northern Ireland stayed within the UK, but things changed. So also North Ireland could be, there will be some change. And so, in this regard, Scotland, North Ireland, and even Wales, they advocate another kind of independent referendum. So, the unity of the United Kingdom is in danger, of course. In addition to that, I have to add something. The so-called domino effect. That is, in addition to UK, there are so many member states, like I said before, Netherlands or Hungary, those countries with strong Euroscepticism, they maybe have their own referendum.
Okay.
In addition to that, Scotland, Ireland, or even Wales, if they have their independence referendum,
okay,
there will be some kind of domino effects.
Yes.
Which means Basque Catalonia in Spain, and also Venice in Italy, and also Flanders in Belgium.
Okay.
Those countries with strong secessionism movement could be, I think, those countries may be some kind of copycat. We can learn something from not only UK's referendum, but also Scotland's or even North Ireland's referendum.
All right. And you are a professor of international politics. Then, based on the developments that you have seen so far, is this an indication that the European Union may be falling apart? In the future, there will be more member states that wanted to leave the European Union. Is that likely to happen?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Right.
Since, because UK, since it's joining the EU, it's not a very close partner of European Union. No. So, according to my personal observation, the UK leave the European Union. It could lead to maybe the disintegrated European Union, which I think
is
unlikely. B, a more integrated European Union. Why? Because if there is no UK, the so-called traditional, so-called Franco-German dual leadership will be reinforced.
Exactly.
However, since France suffers from terrorist attacks and also Euro crisis, I think the importance of France is diminishing.
Okay.
So I think the most likely scenario would be the Germany's unilateral leadership.
Okay.
If this is true, what will happen next?
Okay.
We don't know. But for those member states in the southern part of the European Union, for example, the PIIGS, those countries needed Germans' help. Okay. They need Germans' money. So I think they are willing to see Germans' leadership. But for those countries located at Central and Eastern European countries, those countries, they are not, they have a sense of ambivalence.
Yes.
We enjoy Germans' investment, of course, but during the Second World War, they are the invaders.
Okay. So when we're talking about the Brexit vote and the impact, it's going to have on the global economy and also politics. But other than the uniquely British factors, what were the reasons, in your opinion, that the government in Britain will want to hold a referendum to try, on the one hand, to balance, to protect their domestic interests, but also, on the other hand, to try to reap the fruits of globalization? How can any government, including the one in London, able to do that by balancing the two goals, sometimes maybe a little competing?
Yes. What do you say? It's very crucial for UK's future.
Yes.
According to reports, as we know that there are several options for UK's Brexit.
Okay.
If they try to maintain their national interest, at the same time they try to reap the fruits of globalization.
Okay.
What they can do right now is either A, they can rejoin the European Union in the next decade, for example. But it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Some 60 years ago, they held the first referendum, stay or not in the EU. So this is 60 years ago. So if in the next decade, when they vote to rejoin the EU, it doesn't make any sense. So we just stay within the EU. Second, if UK is not a member state of the European Union anymore, they can maintain, they can copycat, they can learn the Norway's model, which means Norway can have the access to EU's single market. For all the fruits, or for all the economic fruits they can have. They can have the free movement of labor, capitals, and goods, of course. However, Norway has to adopt all the so-called harmonization EU's laws, directives, regulations, decisions. So it is a principle of give and take.
Okay.
So for the UK, if UK try to copy Norway's model, it is also nonsense.
Yes.
Why? Because this referendum is derived from not only sovereignty but also immigrants. So if UK tries to stay close with the European Union, Norway's model, I don't think it is feasible. No. So the lesson model for the UK may be Singapore's model. What is Singapore model? It is a kind of open society.
All right.
We know that Singapore is a tiny city-state. However, Singapore has the most free trade agreement with other states. So maybe UK, they can learn something from Singapore. They can establish some kind of a FTA with European Union, of course, or FTA with Russia, with China, or
individual
with
countries.
Yes.
All right.
However, things are different. For the Singapore, the economic trade volume with ASEAN for Singapore is about 30%. Right. But however, for EU member states and UK, of course, their intra-trade volume is as high as 60 or 70%.
Okay.
So the so-called trade diversion effect may not so vivid.
Okay.
So even UK learn something from Singapore, the effect may not so visible.
Okay. And let me ask you this then. If the European Union decides that, hey, Britain, you want to leave, then we're going to develop, or in the future, form a United States of Europe without Britain. How likely is that?
I have to say that the so-called United States of Europe lies in some people's dream. Okay. But for most people, first, when they have any questions, they need some help, first it comes to their mind is central government, national central government.
Yes.
So the dream United States of Europe may not the first priority for everyone.
No.
So in the near future, what I see is the possibility of a more integrated European Union. Really? Which means we have to deal with immigration crisis, terrorist attacks, and the Euro crisis, and of course some. You can see that there are a lot of terrorist attacks right now in the European continent. Yes. And we need a lot of international cooperation. So EU have to cooperate with Russia, with the United States, with other countries. So a more integrated European Union and a more coherent policy-making process. Yes. And a more prosperous economic development for the European Union is a priority. Yes. The so-called United States of Europe may not their priority.
Okay. And let me ask you this then, Professor Yang. What will be the impact on the world, especially after decades of globalization, because of what happened in the Brexit vote? Is it, an indication maybe globalization, the forces behind it, is coming to an end? Is that what your observations?
In this regard, I have to say globalization has its positive and the negative side.
Yeah, of course.
The positive side of globalization is co-prosperity.
Yes.
It is kind of a win-win game. You win something from the game, and I also can earn something from the game. But globalization has its negative side.
Okay.
That is the so-called, for example, the terrorist attacks. So there are Euro crisis in the European continent. There are also terrorist attacks. And of course, they try to reach some kind of consensus to we can share our prosperity. So in this regard, I think the globalization in European Union is in the critical moment. That is, if we could see some ruling party, extreme right-wing ruling parties
coming to power.
Yes, okay. in each state, and it will lead to some kind of a right-wing extreme politics.
Okay.
For example, the National Front in France,
yes,
the Golden Dawn in Greece, and also the Pegida in Germany.
Okay.
They are the so-called extreme right-wing parties. So the globalization, I have to say, they have it's two sides of a coin.
Okay.
So for European Union right now, UK Brexit is one issue,
yes,
but they have to deal with their domestic affairs.
Yes.
This is another crucial issue.
Okay. And people are now assessing the impact of Brexit vote, one of which is people are looking at ASEAN countries, because ASEAN countries other than EU is another very important and very sizable regional blocks in Southeast Asia. And what will happen? What will be the impact on ASEAN countries? And also more closer to home, what will be the impact on Taiwan? Are we going to be exposed to some risks, for example, in terms of financial institutions, or how will that impact our students' willingness to go over to the UK and study?
I have to say that Taiwan's major trading partners, European Union, ranks third, just after United States, mainland China, and Japan. Ranks fourth. However, UK is not a major trading partner of Taiwan. The first is Germany, of course. So the economic impacts on Taiwan, I think, is not so vivid.
Okay.
But we still can learn something from UK's Brexit referendum.
Of course.
That is, for UK, they think too much integration for the Britons.
Okay.
But for Taiwanese, we feel too less economic integration. However, for the UK, when they vote to leave the EU, they simply because we need sovereignty, we need to control the border, and we need to fight terrorist attacks on our own. Okay. But for Taiwan, we need more and more regional integration. We try to join TPP, we need RCEP, etc.
Okay.
So for Taiwan, right now we are thinking the more membership of international organizations.
Okay.
However, someday in the future, if Taiwan's suffering economic downturn, for example, or someday in the future we need more sovereignty. Okay. Suddenly we think we have so many immigrants, and we need to control our border. What will happen at that time?
Okay.
So this is we can learn something from the UK's referendum.
Okay. How about the impact on Southeast Asia, on ASEAN countries? Do you think that they will have ripple effect on the unity of ASEAN countries?
For right now, ASEAN's integration process. They are just learning some. They are learning something from EU's model. So they have three communities: political and economic and social communities. But compared with EU's integration, I think ASEAN's integration is not similar with European Union.
No.
Their integration is quite on the preliminary level.
Yes.
Mostly in the in the sphere of economy. So the UK's exit, I don't think there will be any single members of ASEAN. They will try to say, okay, we will leave. I don't think so.
All right. Professor Yang, what would be the likely impact on UK's relationship with other member states of EU, and also with the EU itself, and also, for example, like NATO? What will be the impact of the bilateral relations? Please.
What you have mentioned is very crucial in this regard. Since UK may leave the European Union, and as far as we know, there are 2 regional integration organizations in European continent right now.
Yes.
We know there is a European Union.
Yes.
And there is a newly formed regional international organization, that is Eurasian Economic Union, led by Russia.
Yes.
So, what if European Union is shrinking?
Okay.
And it has less and less member states.
Okay.
And the Eurasian, the EU, is on the rising.
Okay.
Not to mention, there are still lots of middle ground countries, which means the Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, and in Caucasus, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, and lots of candidates, candidates, member state of the European Union, that is in the western part of Balkan Peninsula. For example, the Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, etc. Those middle ground states, they have to take a position in the near future.
Okay.
What if EU is no longer attractive, is no longer powerful?
Okay.
Of course, they will try shift their policy to maybe they will rejoin the Eurasian Economic Union.
Okay.
So we have to be cautious that if there are some impacts on this regard.
All right, but does that mean there's going to be a retreat from internationalism, and people are going to be more concerned about nationalism because they want to protect their own national interest and sovereignty? Yes,
in this regard, like I said before, internationalization or the nationalism, just like the 2 sides of one coin.
Yes.
So most people, when they prefer internationalization, when they have, they are more wealthy, they are more peaceful. However, in the face of terrorist attacks, immigrants from Middle East or Northern Africa, and also there are so many bombs around the European continent.
Yes.
They will try to reach some help. Who can offer them help? Central government, because they have military powers and civilian powers. EU actually did not have such capability to deal with those threats. So it is quite natural when we observe the political development in the European continent. There are several countries, they have their extremely right-wing ruling parties emerged. So like I said before, the National Front in France, Pegida in Germany, etc. It's quite normal. However, I have to say that if we choose the right wing, which means sometimes we can say that yes, you need protection. However, it's kind of isolation. So if there are more and more right-wing ruling parties, I think the European Union integration process may stop here and try and retreat to domestic affairs.
Okay, and given the fact that we are likely to see some changes in terms of international alignment and some of the functions of international organizations may be different than it was before. Does that have any impact on international and regional peace and stability, prosperity? What do you think?
Yes, Speaking of how UK's Brexit will influence international order,
yes,
I have to say that first, the UK's Brexit will influence the UK's international prestige.
Okay.
So the UK may, since I am not a member of the European Union, I should turn to other great powers' help.
Okay.
The first option will be United States.
Of course.
So we can see a strong UK-US strong alliance will emerge. Second, since I am not a member of the European Union, but still I have to be the center of international finance, and I need more and more foreign direct investment from outside the European Union.
Yes.
So I need the wealthy country, for example, China.
Yes.
So we can see that maybe in the near future, the UK tries to connect with China, and they may reach some consensus international treaties in this regard.
Okay.
And also, in addition to EU's international influence, we can see that if EU's integration stops here, not only EU, but also we can see there are a lot of regional integration organizations. For example, the ASEAN, and like I said, the EU, and also the Mercosur in South American Common Market, for example, and also in the Middle East, in the Africa, there are various regional organizations right now. So if you stop here, the international order will emerge just like the multipolarity international system.
Okay.
So I have to say, UK's Brexit is crucial in this regard.
Okay. And what do you then think, Professor Yang, what would be the, the recommended steps that the governments and different organizations can take to try to prevent the forces of globalization or internationalism from collapsing? Because you see more and more countries, including the Brexit vote, that the people want more control, more autonomy on their own. So, is that indicate, does that indicate that people are now looking at their national interest first and foremost, and international interest second? So does that mean the end of globalization?
I don't think this is the end of globalization.
Okay.
And if we think this is the right way we are going to, so I have to say that the first, economy first,
yes,
is the most important mentality. This economy first is win-win mentality.
Yes.
Both of us, we can learn something, we can make money from this organization. So economy first. Second, human rights protection. Human rights is very important. For example, in Taiwan, we are talking about the abortion right, death penalty. Over there, in European Union, they do not have a death penalty.
No.
They have the right of abortion, etc. So the, some kind of a human rights protection progress. This is also crucial.
Yes.
And of course, democracy. Democracy is also crucial in this regard because, yes, we do not like extreme right-wing political parties. However, if people vote yes to those parties, we have to respect the outcome.
Okay.
So the economy, human rights, and democracy, I think it could be the cure for globalization. Okay.
And finally, Professor Yang, let me ask you this question. With the Brexit vote, a lot of people thought it was going to be close or May will stay in the European Union, but it didn't turn out that way. And does that mean, maybe to some of the European people, does that mean that people may have resentment towards the British people in the sense that, hey, you don't want to be a part of us, you probably think that you're better than us, and so now leave. Leave as quickly as possible. We don't need you. Could there be, among the people, be that general resentment towards one and another, and that could cause more friction between the government, also cause more possibly misunderstanding between the different countries. What do you think?
Yes, I think temporary resentment, of course, of course. Just like I said before.
Okay.
I have known some European scholars.
Yes.
And even civilians. Okay. Sometimes they think the Britons, they are not truly Europeans, especially when Britons always says, "You Europeans."
Okay.
They have some kind of expression, "I am not a truly Europeans."
No.
So they use the term "You Europeans."
Okay.
So temporary resentment, of course, I do think. However, UK, of course, is part of the European continent.
Yes.
They have close marriage, communication,
yes,
culture, etc. So UK is part of a European continent, of course, and I also believe that UK will find a way after the Brexit.
Okay.
And I believe that UK may go back to a European in the near future, but in what kind of ways or in what kind of forms, still unknown.
All right. Finally, do you think their position, London's position as one of the international financial centers, would that change?
As far as I know, there are several competitors.
Yes, of course.
For example, the Frankfurt.
Yes,
the Frankfurt within the European Union. Frankfurt, they are trying to replace London.
Yes.
Of course, I think it has potential.
All right. So there could be some investments moving from London onto Frankfurt.
Yes.
All right. Professor Yang, thank you very much for being a special guest on our program today. Certainly learned a lot from you. I want to wish you all the best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much for watching our program today. I'll see you next time on MacroView Television. Thank you.